Okay, we're about to rehouse one of my subadult or almost adult female Phormictopus cancerides or cancerides, whatever way you pronounce it. These guys I got, I believe, in 2014 from Jamie's as slings. I bought two of them. Later on, I bought an immature female because I didn't want to wait and find out if I had a female. I just bought one. Well, now I have three females. So this is one of the original two. This one's probably pushing 3 years old. Note about these guys as slings, they grow like crazy fast. The amount of size they put on between molts is incredibly impressive. Once they hit about the 4 inch mark, though, it slows down quite a bit. So again, if you want something that you buy as a sling and you're going to have something that looks like a big hairy spider quickly, these guys are fantastic for it. Just know that the growth does slow down once they hit that larger size. As slings, I kept them moist and was pretty obsessive about making sure that they were kept moist. As they get older, it's not as big of a deal. People that are breeding them might be a different story because you want to kind of simulate what conditions are like. I want to go ahead and kick the light on. What conditions are like where they come from. But as far as just keeping these guys, as you can see, the substrate here is quite dry. I always give them a water dish, and I do wet it down, but I don't keep it wet. I let it dry out in between, and they do perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get this girl out of here. You may want to back up a bit because I don't know which way she's going to shoot. Right into the cup. Okay. Oh, there you go. One of the things that's said about these guys, or a couple of things that kind of give them a bad rep. Number one, they kind of have a reputation for just being big brown spiders. I've heard people say they're boring. The color these guys go through as they mature from or grow up from slings, where they start off this beautiful blue to adults, is amazing. I've seen golds, bronzes, purples. It's just really saying they're just a brown spider isn't really true and doesn't do this species justice. Another thing that's said quite a bit is that they are very, very mean, and I have spoken to people who've said theirs are very ornery and nasty. I have not, right in the water dish, darn it. Go ahead and grab that piece out of there and try to. I have not had that experience. Mine have actually been very, very well behaved. Right. Yep. Concentrating now, so I'm going to shut up for a minute. There we go. Now we got a threat pose. But I don't blame her. I just plucked her right out of her house. So is the light on that thing?
Yeah.
It is on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and try to pull this off without her going nuts. The only one I've had any threat poses from, for the most part, is one of my species purples, which are thought to be possibly just different coloration of cancerides. And it's only been occasionally. The majority of my guys, at the worst case scenario, are skittish. And that's about it. I haven't had anybody come out at me and attack me. However, I've spoken to other keepers that have them that say they are one of the few spiders they keep that will come at them. They've used the term aggressive as opposed to defensive. Like they'll come out at you. So let's see if I can get this down without this one flipping out. And there she is. I'm going to get the cover ready. So that's Phormictopus cancerides, whatever way you want to pronounce it. One of my favorite species, and this is the one that got me into the Phormictopus species. Again, hopefully what comes out in this video is some of the maroon highlights, the bronze and the carapace. I mean, it's really a gorgeous spider, and they get pretty good size. I've heard people say they get to be 9 inches or so. I don't know how likely that is. I've heard more 7.5, 8 is the norm, but that's still a pretty good size spider. Very, very hardy. Temperatures, when I first got them, they were in the 70s all winter, low 70s, sometimes 68, did perfectly fine, kept eating, kept molting. In the summertime, they're up to 80, usually 75 to 80 around there, and no issues whatsoever with molting, eating, or anything of that nature. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the cover on this one before she comes out and gets Billy. But just a word about the enclosure. I switched to from some of my Sterilite because they're kind of cloudy. And I do like the Sterilite when they're younger. When I get a sling or a juvenile, I want to make sure that I can keep the conditions right first. I'm not as concerned with what the enclosure looks like. As they get older and more hardy, that's when I start experimenting with the enclosures, putting them in nice things. So this is one of the breeder boxes. It's ventilated on the sides, which is perfect. I blocked off the ventilation on the top because I don't want it to evaporate particularly fast. And I will moisten this down a little more than normal because there is really good ventilation in this one. But there she is. I can see her. And it's got the little window in the top that makes it convenient for feeding. So there she is, Phormictopus cancerides. And just take the top off one more time so we can get one more shot of her. There she is. shotgun.